Hello and welcome to Unlocking Health with Dr. Lexi. And today I'm here with Mike Rhees. Mike is a nutritionist. You've worked extensively in the nutritional field and supplements, and you're now venturing into some other things, but you are an expert in the microbiome. And I think this is really a topic that so many people need to have a better understanding about. So welcome. I'm glad to have you here.
Awesome to be here.
So tell me a little bit about what your interest in the microbiome is, and what is the microbiome for those that don't know?
Well, my interest in the microbiome has increased specifically over these last 8 years with some of the business partners I've had or people that I've worked with and worked for, just watching the research develop. But let's kind of take that back just a few steps. What is the microbiome? The microbiome is, as a colleague of mine, Dr. Morris, says, it's a consortia of bacteria that lives among us and in us. So our body is full of bacteria, good and not so good. And we sometimes forget there's actually so much that's good as far as bacteria goes.
Right.
And we can touch more on the details as this conversation evolves, but the microbiome I look at is not only is it bacteria that lives in our gut, so in our intestines or our entire GI tract from the mouth down the esophageal and entire lower GI tract. Not only is it bacteria that lives there, but it's bacteria that lives everywhere, head to toe. We forget that there's a microbiome that is not only in our gut, but it's also greatly impacts our brain and our skin and all the other functions and systems of the body.
Right. And that's one thing that I've really learned over the years is the microbiome is different for each organ, for each area of the body. I mean, the innate ability of the body to know what it needs and generally keep it in balance most of the time it's amazing. But the skin, like you said, has its own microbiome versus each specific organ versus, the GI system or tract, and even the brain itself has its own microbiome. So what are things so the microbiome, what does it control in the body?
The microbiome, what does the microbiome control? Well, the microbiome can actually help with initially the actual barrier, the mucosal barrier in your gut. There's a mucosal lining that the healthier that is, the healthier our immune system is. The more preventative we will be ongoing from being impacted by viral pathogens and fungal pathogens like mold toxicity, candida overgrowth, yeast overgrowth, and other immunocompromised issues. So our mucosal barrier is huge for preventing, even H. pylori and C. diff, and at least keeping those at bay. So we might have a degree of H. pylori, right, or we might have a degree of, intestinal issues. It's just part of life, but we're able to keep things at bay. And we're able to actually get rid of things or prevent things from invading us and harming us. The healthier the microbiome is, the healthier the mucus is in our gut. So the microbiome is going to actually impact the mucus in the gut, the tight junctions of your gut.
Right.
So like how your peristalsis works, how well you digest food, how well you metabolize, and so on. And there's access point or accesses, I guess is the proper way to say it, grammatically. There are different connections, the brain to the gut, the skin to the gut, the immune to the gut, the endocrine gut connection. So there are specific bacteria strains or probiotics that would impact your endocrine system more than others, that would help with female-related issues, or specific ones that are going to help you with your neurotransmitters of your brain so you're more alert and you can prevent the neurodegenerative issues and so on. So
that's interesting. I was really probably only aware of the vagus nerve right between the brain and gut. But so you're saying there's other junctions that connect every other part of the body to the gut and the microbiome in the gut. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, it's fascinating. It's Dr. Morris, a colleague of mine, biochemist, PhD, really over a dozen years ago is where he really just dove in as far as being able to evolve probiotic natural products or formulas that he wanted to be ahead of the curve, cutting edge, that would target other parts of the body. And as part of his research, he found that there were these strong connections between the skin and the gut, the immune in the gut, the endocrine system in the gut, and so on, that the microbiome is therefore going to greatly impact all of the other systems of the body. They'll all operate better. Soundtrack's wonderful here, but that they'll all impact the different systems of the body. And so he studied that extensively, and he learned after enough research, which strains, I call them, he calls them bugs. Let's keep it simple. Different bugs, probiotics, that impact which organ or system of the body the most. And so he thought, well, if we're going to make a skin product, let's get all the bacteria that impacts the skin, let's put it together, put it in a capsule, you can swallow it, and then it can help, your skin look better, feel better. You can overcome skin conditions. So let's create a product like that. Well, he went through a lot of trial and error to figure out how these bugs thrive. Mm-hmm. And they need to be fed, they need to be fertilized, and like our bodies need, they need micronutrients, they need vitamins, and minerals, and antioxidants, and other proper nutrition so that they can multiply. And he actually learned that through trial and error and through a lot of work. And anyway, so it's fascinating.
That's fascinating. Truly, that's fascinating. Now, I know there's some people that may not be aware of if their microbiome is off, right? Some people are just not very in tune to their body. There's obvious symptoms of a dysfunctional microbiome, but then there's some things that are more understated that people aren't quite aware of that could let them know that they need to work on their microbiome. Is that true?
Yeah, it is true. Yes. And I think we often associate that with how your gut feels. So somebody that has the irritable bowel syndrome symptoms, right, of just excessive gas, chronic flatulence, or bloating. They try to upgrade their diet with broccoli and kale and these natural foods, and eat more asparagus and do these things, but it doesn't seem to be improving the situation. And so they realize, well, gosh, I've got this underlying gut issue. What's going on? And that's one thing you can identify that, okay, if there is a microbiome shift, that could greatly help with these IBS symptoms or symptoms of leaky gut, mm-hmm. where the actual junctions of your tissues aren't closing properly. And right. So there's stuff leaking out, stuff leaking in. It's causing havoc. It's causing a lot of gas and bloat. I think those are common symptoms that people can associate with gas, bloat. They eat fiber and they just feel awful the more fiber they eat.
So if they have skin symptoms, though, that may also be an indication that the gut is off?
Sure. Yeah, in fact, great point. So if they have skin issues, or if they have, or even back to the endocrine system, the urogenital tract, or even the brain, if there is, if the neurotransmitters are imbalanced. So even just cases of depression or anxiety, or those could be indicators that the microbiome in the gut is off.
Mm-hmm.
But with to your point, with the skin, things like dermatitis, rosacea, eczema, other dysbiosis of the skin. Dysbiosis is where the skin bacteria or microbiome is not congruent. It's the bacteria is just out of balance, and it can cause those conditions that we're more aware of as practitioners and as the patient dealing with this. These issues like psoriasis
Mm-hmm.
and dermatitis and rosacea, and those do often come back to the health of the status of the microbiome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you feel that the microbiome gets out of balance? Is it more bad bacteria, or is it an overproliferation of good bacteria and it just becomes an unbalance that causes the microbiome to be off?
Great point. A really good question that I think it is a deficiency. I think overall it is a deficiency in the diversity of good bacteria that we could have there. Everything is more oftentimes than not a deficiency, and it's an overproliferation of bad bacteria, and there's been overgrowth of bacteria that's not serving. So basically, the weeds in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
There's different types of weeds in a garden. There's not just one type of weed. And fortunately, we can de-weed the garden, and the common approach is to do that first before we plant the rose bushes, before we plant the perennials and annuals and have fun with all of that, the gardening. Let's clear this out. Let's till the ground. Let's clean everything up, and then let's plant all the good guys in, rather than, hey, let's leave the weeds here and let's go ahead and plant the roses
and then choke them out with the good stuff, right?
Exactly, and fertilize them. You need to nourish everything appropriately. You need to fertilize grass so that it can be that much healthier. It just works that much better. But before you go that far, you've got to have good soil to plant it in. And so I don't know if that digresses from your question at all.
No, actually, I mean, that's a really good question. And I think that's, to your point, that's why antibiotics really screw up the microbiome, because they're killing a lot of the good bacteria. And even though they kill some of the bad, they're killing the good. And then the bad comes back or just throws everything off balance. It's a deficiency, like you said, and that kind of takes it from there. So I know I think the Merck manual from back in the 1900s basically said anytime you took antibiotics, you should always do probiotics with it at the time. Of course, Western medicine has sort of deviated from that thought process. I think everyone would be helped by doing that. So how many microbes or organisms are in the microbiome?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I mean, how many organisms are in the microbiome? I mean, it's
Trillions, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Mm-hmm. That's why it's such an exciting field of study for those who are doing it, is because there's so much there that's been untouched. And yeah, to your point, it elevates the need for knowing more about it when it comes down to long-term health and well-being, because of how many trillions of organisms there are that impact us, for sure. So,
and I don't know if will know this or not, but I figured I'll throw it out since you talked about the mucosal layer. Biofilms are a really big thing, and I know biofilms come especially from organisms as a protective.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I could be wrong, as a protective mechanism to protect them. I guess that's what protective means. But does that stem from the mucosal layer? So if the mucosal layer is healthy, will there be less chance of biofilms developing? Is there any
Yeah.
relationship between that?
Yeah, there is a relationship. And I think that when we talk about removing biofilms, removing the underlying toxins in the small and large intestines, we're removing the sludge. Once we get to all of that and we get rid of that, you know, the mucoid plaque, if you will, in the small intestine, and then everything, small intestine works better. It absorbs the nutrients better. We just, I mean, it's, for some people, it's like life-changing when they clear that stuff out, right? And it should feel that way. That, I think where the biofilm has become a negative issue and it's gotten out of hand and we have difficulty digesting food and our, you know, our intestines are toxic, that's where the mucosal layer is not as healthy as it could be. And I think it gives room for biofilms and sludge and intestinal overgrowth, dysbiosis, other issues to take hold and perpetuate, like biofilms. Yeah.
So you had mentioned earlier that starting with some of the probiotics and prebiotics, things like that, to improve the microbiome is probably the best place to start with treatment programs. So you feel that's where someone should go if they're struggling, is start there and then address the underlying issues. So clean the gut up first and then tackle maybe infections or other root causes, or what do you feel is?
Oh, it's a wonderful question because all of that is so important. Addressing the underlying infection is a great place to start, because if you're addressing the underlying infection, you're addressing bacterial, fungal, viral pathogens that are residing in the gut. And that's benefiting the microbiome. So commonly, de-weeding the garden first in the gut is a great place to start before then you recolonize with the probiotics.
Okay.
Now, while it's been commonplace for people to recommend cleansing the gut first before you introduce any probiotics, especially if there's situations like SIBO, and small intestine bacterial overgrowth, or SIFO, small intestine fungal overgrowth, etc., you start giving somebody a lot of lactobacillus type strains of probiotics that you would see in a generic probiotic out there, lactobacillus ACI and these other things, and you get more bloated until you get rid of this underlying cause. You're removing the source first. So that's important to note. Don't rush into probiotics too early until you actually detox, clear out the infection, clear out the pathogens. Now, however, I will focus on an exception here. Soil-based organisms, like there's probiotics that are soil-based. And you'll often notice by their names, they start with bacillus coagulans. There's a diversity of others. There's a lot of good brands out there, from Microbiome Labs to Cellcore to others that are carrying these. Dr. Shane Morris with Systemic Formulas has started a brand called Microbiome, and that's the most diverse soil-based probiotic that I have seen. Is the TerraBiome product that's there. It's a diversity of soil-based probiotics, and it does, you could actually accompany that even during the cleansing or detoxing anti-infective phase. It's not going to interfere with anything. In fact, people with IBS symptoms, people with leaky gut, people with C. diff, other gut ailments that they've been struggling with and they haven't been able to get to the bottom of with antibiotics or what other measures they've used, TerraBiome has actually helped some people, colleagues of mine and others that I know of, that the soil-based organisms has helped. So those won't get in the way if you haven't already an underlying issue. You wouldn't have to wait on those. You could, if you wanted to simplify the process, hey, let's just look at these herbs or these essential oils or these other compounds that kill first. Let's kind of do this natural way of healing the gut by eliminating the bad guys first, and then let's restore the good guys.
Okay.
But then once you start restoring the good guys later, keep going. I think we often put probiotics for like sometime later, like, oh, that's probiotics. I'll pay attention to that later. I'll do it for a little while and then maybe come back to it again later. They're just probiotics. It's evolved to the point where I think it's meant to be month after month after month after month. Because what that does, if you're changing things up, which there's diversity in what's out there now, you could do month 1 with this product, month 2 with this, month 3, that will help prevent further issues from taking hold. So the benefit of paying attention to really effective probiotics is the preventative piece.
And that was probably one of the biggest takeaways I've had in the last few months is to definitely rotate my probiotics. I used to always take the same one and I would feel pretty good initially. And then I would kind of go back and I realized, oh, I'm probably out of balance with all of those that I keep taking versus changing them up every 30 days or so. What do you find that people generally have a lot of Herc's reactions initially when they start to take products like probiotics and prebiotics? Do they tend to get more gassy as it's killing things off or reestablishing balance?
You know, it's a really good question. I think it's easy. It's easy to say, well, yeah, start taking this probiotic and this diarrhea that's ongoing is going to cease. It will stop and everything will get stabilized. I've seen that happen again and again and again. I've known of that to happen where recolonizing the right bugs there is really going to help with intestinal issues. However, on the flip side, you know, when you start to recolonize these healthy probiotics, yes, sometimes that creates loose stool temporarily. Sometimes, yeah, that does cause these symptoms that people don't necessarily appreciate at first. It's not for everyone,
right?
But it is a good thing. They're fighting a battle, and they're trying to win a battle in your gut, and there's merit in that. So, is there a Herc's reaction? I mean, yes, there definitely can be, and I think the more drained someone focuses on their lymphatic system and keeping things flowing, focused on the antioxidants, your main basic antioxidants, vitamins A, vitamin C, vitamin E. Having enough vitamin A, C, and E can actually, and I'm talking natural vitamin A. I think sometimes people are like, oh no, I got to stay away from, vitamin A, synthetic vitamin A. It's like, just vitamin A, beta carotene, vitamin C, vitamin E, those antioxidants can really help the body stay or experience drainage. It's where you prevent the Herc's reaction from happening.
Okay.
Binders like activated charcoal, fulvic acid, humic acid, those kinds of things. And there's products there that are helpful with that sort of a thing. And there's certain dietary practices that can help with that too, to keep things flowing and keep things, to where that can actually prevent Herc's reactions from happening. So when you start taking a probiotic, you're okay, and you don't experience the
negatives, the initial negatives.
And they are temporary. If there is more cleansing to do, if there's anti-infective work to do, pay attention to that first. And if you do, the likelihood is very strong for when you start probiotics that you're going to experience less of the potential Herc's reaction.
Okay.
So
now, one thing that I've been learning, I guess, recently is that maybe if someone has SIBO or SIFO, that probiotics might make it worse or make it more active, so they may not do well, and that it's sort of an underlying way to test about whether or not you do have either one of those?
Yeah, it is. It is better to take care of the underlying issues and toxins in the gut first with SIFO and SIBO before starting a probiotic. If you started a probiotic and you experience more, I would say, bloat and irritation, that's a good sign that you do have SIBO. You know, whereas another person could start the same probiotic and feel completely fine. So taking a probiotic and experiencing, more bloat and just kind of those, just more irritable symptoms. I'm not thinking of some of the others, but I think just some of I
would say the common things that especially come with SIBO and SIFO right now. What would you say are the 3 biggest things that maybe someone needs to do to improve their microbiome?
Well, keep the gut clean. Again, sorry for the background noise here, but really keep the gut and keep the body clean, and then maintain a healthy microbiome over the long haul by, and I know you have access to some really good products that help people do that. But initially, I would say, doing an effective detox, not just a short-term cleanse, but something that really makes a difference. And then that can really help the body push reset.
Deeper tissue cleanses and things like that.
Even cellular healing.
Yep.
Things like glutathione and paying attention to things like cellular inflammation. Those types of things, when you focus on a detox where the liver undergoes a change, the liver is able to dump toxins. Someone can actually overcome this ongoing fatty liver disease or issue that they've had. The more toxins that they've dumped from their liver and their gallbladder and their cells overall, and their, this deep tissue cleanse, and you're eliminating all those toxins, that also makes a big difference in the microbiome head to toe. But ongoing, rather than looking at a detox as doing indefinitely, how long do I have to do a detox? Do I have to, work on this brain detox for 6 months in a row? That's not my take on it. I think that there is a time and place to detox and eliminate, then change it up, restore your microbiome at that point. Okay, you've done a gut cleanse. Okay, let's stop right there. It's not perfect, but you've had a lot of progress. Let's move on. Let's start restoring. Let's start recolonizing and working on prevention. Let's come back to a detox a little bit later, but for now, let's change things up.
Right. And the body can heal itself. So if you get it part of the way where it needs to go, then it can start to take over. You brought up a good point, though. You mentioned the liver and the gallbladder. So I had my gallbladder removed. I wish I never did, but I had it removed. So with someone who's had their gallbladder removed and they're not having all the bile production that they should, will they tend to have more microbiome issues?
They could. Yeah, I think where the gallbladder is highly involved in the metabolism and digestion of fats, and eating a higher fat diet when somebody is ketogenic or they're reducing their carbs and they're eating a higher amount of avocados and olive oil and coconut oil and all these things, these fats that are good, they may not be metabolizing all of those fats without enough lipase enzyme. And if you have enough lipase, if you're able to supplement ox bile or be able to appropriately digest fats, then that can impact the microbiome. I think where without a gallbladder that does all this work, keep in mind that the liver steps it up, the
Mm-hmm.
pancreas steps it up. These brother sister organs actually are doing more now to compensate for what's being missed. So that's kind of cool. I know that there's some wisdom there as far as what the gallbladder can do, what the liver can do, what the spleen can do to help compensate for a missing gallbladder. But yeah, that can impact the microbiome for sure. I would say, though, there's ways around that. There's ways that somebody without a gallbladder can still have a very healthy microbiome if they continue to not only supplement a diversity of probiotics, but also eventually start eating more, not just fiber,
Mm-hmm.
not just, hey, you need to increase your fiber, but also a diversity of fibers, which are known as prebiotics or the fertilizer. So a cool thing about a diversity of types of fibers is that they serve as feeding and helping the microbiome grow. And that's making sure that not only do you get a lot of fiber, but just a variety of fibers, different kinds throughout your diet variation, and maybe even supplements that you take from greens to other types fibers to really diversify. At first, you might have to start slower if you're not as accustomed to fiber, but once you've gone through a good detox or cleanse and you start to incorporate fiber, if you do have a missing gallbladder, starting to gradually increase the fiber content in your diet can actually go a long way at helping the microbiome flourish.
Thank you. Thank you. I've always wondered, I've been going down this deeper dive into that lately, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do years ago?
It's what did you do? What do you mean?
I just, knowing what I know now, I never would have had my gallbladder removed had I known that there was simple steps that I could have done to really help my gallbladder along without taking a major organ, right? I mean, the doctors just really minimize what a gallbladder is. And I know the bile itself helps to flush out some of the toxins, through the liver. And so if you don't have all that bile, a lot of that still isn't going through. So the toxins can stay a little bit more stagnant in the body or become more overburdened in the liver without that whole pathway. But, like I said, I'm still a newbie researching all that. So just kicking myself for, not investigating things more. And I don't think my doctors ever told me to take ox bile or to watch what I was eating or how even fiber might affect that afterwards. So live and learn.
Right? Fiber is one of those things where people that, they go on these carnivore diets, they experience amazing results. There's no question.
One of them.
They go on a ketogenic diet, low restricted carbs. They even stop eating vegetables and fruits for a while. I mean, fruits because of the simple sugars, but even vegetables. And they go down this route of meat and fat and see a lot of gut healing occur. And that's wonderful. But I think, again, that's meant for a period of time,
right,
and then slowly incorporate other foods back into the diet once your gut has gone through this healing process.
Yep.
And now it's able to tackle and handle these other diversity of foods slowly but surely. Same thing goes with fibers. So, and if you experience a little bit of temporary or initial symptoms right away because you start to increase fibers back, you have a little bit of broccoli or you have a little bit of asparagus or whatever, Brussels sprouts or whatever it is, just slowly but surely, the diversity of fibers can go a long way. Don't rush back into it, but it's amazing how much just the variety can help with the health of the microbiome and the health of, those who've had gallbladder issues, let alone a gallbladder removal. So.
Thank you for saying that. I was carnivore, started keto, went carnivore for 5 years, and it was great for a while. And then I was like, whoa, I'm really much more tired than I used to be. But I thought my body just did not absorb vegetables because they created a problem for me. And I was newly divorced at the time. And last thing I wanted to be was on a hot date and running to a restroom or something. I was like, eh. So just eating meat, I thought, no, that's what my body wants, is just to eat meat. So now I'm seeing the benefits of really needing the vegetables back in. Of course, we all know that, but I think the benefit of something like carnivore is that it's the ultimate elimination diet to start off with. And then, like you said, just gradually add things back in slowly. So thank you so much. I've really appreciated talking to you. I think your understanding of the microbiome is exceptional, and you're just a guru as far as that's concerned. I'm looking forward to new ventures in your life and how we can reconnect on that. Any parting words for any of the listeners?
Yeah, just keep in mind that the microbiome reaches far beyond stomach or intestines. It really can greatly impact the brain and other systems of the body. And I like the brain is such a focal point because that impacts so many different health aspects, from kids to adults, whether it's, pre-dementia symptoms or whether it's a younger child that has difficulty focusing in school.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's ADHD, ADD symptoms, there's the microbiome can impact that.
Right.
And even children that have other skin issues, think about the microbiome and how much that could help. Adults that have skin issues, think of the microbiome and how much that could help. And so I think for us to now open our minds to all of these other conditions and symptoms and how much the microbiome can impact those protocols.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you. I will definitely be incorporating more of the biome products into my protocols after what I've learned talking to you today. So thanks so much.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, Lexi. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.